Hi, my name is Sean Amlaner, and I am a senior digital compositor working in the post-production visual effects industry. I've worked as a digital compositor, as a compositing lead, and as a compositing supervisor. Some of the projects that I've been fortunate enough to have been participating in, more recently, one of my favorites was Star Trek Picard. That takes me right back to my childhood. Star Trek was right where it was at. I loved a good sci-fi show, and it delivered. Some of the prior projects that I've been a part of, we've worked on Bridgerton, a lot of the Marvel features, as well as the Best Visual Effects Oscar for the Golden Compass. Even as a small child, I remember always saying, watching things like Looney Tunes or Scooby-Doo, those were the cartoons. I'm like, I want to make this stuff. I want to know how that works. Probably Jurassic Park. That was probably one of the very first things that I remember being like, oh my goodness, how did they make that and why? It looks so real, it looks so exciting, but obviously dinosaurs don't exist, so what did it take to get to that point? When I was in high school, I actually had been taking a lot of classes that were focused around getting me prepared for engineering. I'd actually been accepted into one of the best engineering schools in the US. As I was going down that path, I started to kind of question as to whether or not that traditional expectation was really where I wanted to go. During that time, I met someone who would eventually become the dean of the art school that I ended up going to, and he kind of showed me a little bit more of what this world was, what animation was capable of achieving, what visual effects was kind of all about. And so then I had a bit of a kind of a actually not a bit, a pretty major pivot where I decided, you know what, I'm not going to be an engineer, not going to go into that. I'm actually going to go into visual arts and entertainment industry. I'm gonna get a degree in 3D character animation. Part of that was obviously having a down-to-earth conversation with my family, saying, hey, look, I know this is where I'm going. This is where we thought I was going, but I decided to make a bit of a change. Obviously, one of the big concerns that came out of that was, can you actually achieve a career in this? Can you make it viable? Can you actually go down that path and see yourself through to be able to successfully not only complete a college degree, but also successfully compete and gain employment in this industry that is, in large part, very mysterious to the outside world? There were a lot of conversations that centered around that, a lot of research, and obviously, as you can imagine, back then, the internet was way smaller. Being able to quote unquote Google search something was not really a thing. You kind of had to just try to find people or talk to people, and I had a few conversations through a few different connections that I'd made through my soon-to-be dean of that school, and that helped me to kind of solidify where I was wanting to go. It also helped to offer some certain levels of reassurance in terms of having those conversations with the family to be able to justify, hey, look, this is what I want to do. So when I went into college, I'd signed up to do 3D character animation. That was the degree, and I fairly quickly realized that there was more to it than just hand drawing characters or 3D animating characters or scenes. And I started questioning, like, well, okay, if going back to one of those initial inspirations of Jurassic Park, obviously they had to animate the dinosaurs. Obviously there were other aspects that went into it as well, though. So where did all those other steps come into play? What was what were the things that people were doing to be able to achieve those results? So I started to, as I progressed through my degree, I started to kind of pursue other areas. And back then, especially, degrees in the visual arts and entertainment industry were a lot more generic. A 3D character animation degree didn't encompass just 3D character animation. It was learning things from graphic design over to motion graphics on over to actual character animation and 3D rendering, lighting, modeling, you name it, it was probably somewhere in there. Trying to figure that out, though, what was the niche, the area that I was really excited about, that I was passionate about, that I wanted to be able to spend time in, not just learning, but could foresee myself wanting to spend a lifetime going after in my career. And as I progressed, I started to land more towards the effects side of things. And while we talk about visual effects, there is a specific career path that's known as an effects artist. These were the people that would create water simulations, fire, flames, explosions, buildings falling apart, and anything you name it that required a certain level of real-world physics that needed to be simulated and ultimately then rendered out in 3D. Back in the day, again, I can't believe I'm saying back in the day, but spending time in what was known as real flow. This was the very early advent of that, when in fact that's what they utilized for things such as the original Lord of the Rings movies. A lot of it was just experimentation, trying to figure it out. There was no online help, there were no tutorials, there was no guide, there were no classes to take. It was just a matter of sit down on the computer and try it out and figure it out. And so as I progressed further into that, by the time I landed into my senior year in college, I was actually leaning even more into one more career opportunity that I had subsequently been learning about, which was known as compositing. We call it digital compositing these days. Back then, it was film and digital compositing. You had two kind of aspects of it, because obviously back then there was a lot more film-based camera work that was shot. But a compositor is the person who would take all the computer-generated elements and the live-action elements and blend them together seamlessly for a photoreal finish. So going back to that Jurassic Park moment, I remember, you seeing these dinosaurs suddenly reveal. The compositor is the one that would have taken the computer-generated dinosaurs and blended that with the stuff that was shot in camera with the actual actors on set, wherever they were being recorded via film. So as I got into my senior year in college, I was spending more and more time trying to figure out, what is that? What do I do? How do I accomplish that? I started out dabbling a lot more in After Effects. Back then, and still to this day, After Effects is a software program, but it wasn't what the industry typically expected for compositing. So when I graduated with my undergraduate degree, I actually chose to go on and get a master's degree at a different school and spend another couple more years trying to really focus in my skills as a digital compositor. That was what I had ultimately decided, and I really wanted to be able to hone my craft, develop my portfolio, and be able to figure out exactly what it was that it took to be able to be seen in what is a rather highly competitive industry and accomplish my ultimate career goal, which was to become a digital compositor. So for the next 2 years, while I was getting my master's degree, I was working out of my apartment, just trying to pick up any freelance opportunities that might come. One of my best friends and I, we were roommates at the time, and we spent basically every waking hour going after opportunities, not just in school but also externally, making contacts. And again, as you can imagine, back then the prevalence of the internet was not nearly as established as it is today, but it was still about networking. It was still about making friends, establishing contacts, and finding out if there were opportunities through these different folks that might lean into allowing the opportunity to grow your portfolio and your experience. One thing led to another. We got to work on some music videos, some small episodic television projects, and then we ended up working on a few very small projects on some smaller budget feature films. But the quote-unquote big break that I would probably call it, the Hollywood big break, came when we ended up landing an opportunity to work on Ghost Rider. It was the old Nicolas Cage movie. Working out of our apartment on this project was the sort of the penultimate opportunity and experience that sealed the deal. We put a lot into it. We did a lot more hours than what we can call were paid work at that moment, but it really paid off. We got a portfolio piece that honestly would have never been achieved through a school-based experience, because schoolwork is schoolwork, but this was professional work, and this is what we were going after. That was sort of the final nail in the coffin, if you want to say, as far as sealing the deal for where I wanted to go with my career. I knew that from that day onward, that was kind of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a digital compositor through and through. The interesting thing, though, that came out of that was the fact that it wasn't a straight line. It wasn't that, like if you put on the horse blinders and you look forward and you say, okay, that's what I want to be. I want to be a digital compositor. I'm going to do everything that is only digital compositing. There were a lot of ancillary opportunities that came along through the different years leading up to that had I turned down just because I would have been like, I want to be a digital compositor, it wouldn't have helped advance my career. These different ancillary opportunities were, even though it was more of a zigzag pattern, were things that led one to another and opened up these opportunities, and eventually was why we landed the chance to work on Ghost Rider. That project was the game changer. The work that we did, a specific shot that we did, ended up getting published in an industry recognized journal, got some press, and that was actually one of the reasons that then when I applied to an internship out in Los Angeles, was one of the reasons that studio took notice and ended up bringing me out, moving me out after they took me in for an internship, and they hired me full-time subsequently, and I worked there for a number of years. Each opportunity that comes along is a new opportunity. You always have to be open to it. I think one of the things that many times we forget is that we want to expand our experience, but we want it to be specifically what we want it to be. And so we forget that when an opportunity comes in from the side, something that might not be exactly what it is we thought it was going to be is still an opportunity that will allow you to progress your career. Learning additional skills, even if it isn't specific to what you say, I'm going to be a 3D animator, I'm going to be a lighter, I'm going to be an effects artist, I'm going to be a digital painter, and I'm only going to work on this one style of digital painting. No, open to extra opportunities, because those things, even if it isn't exactly what you want it to be, is going to lead to another thing. Each thing snowballs into another opportunity, and that's where you build those contacts. You show that you have a wide, diverse range of skill sets within your area of specialty is what really sets you apart for when you're going after that work. That, and obviously being willing to work hard, not taking no for an answer, and being open to change and adaptation. One of the things that I always tell folks is, it's not about a personal outcome. It's about being professional in all that you do. And then one of the big things that a lot of people sometimes maybe forget is when you're getting feedback, both personally and professionally, that feedback is always a professional development opportunity. It's not about oh man, that's amazing, this is so good. It's about, what can I do to improve? What can I do to become better at what it is I have always set myself out to? And for me, being a digital compositor, the only way to become a better digital compositor is by looking at what it is I need to improve upon. That's a mantra, not just during my formal years in college and graduate school. That's been a lifestyle choice from then on to now and into the future. Not taking it personally, but knowing that it's a professional opportunity that is gaining you the ability to grow. So a day in the life of a compositor, it's interesting because compositors handle a lot of different tasks. When you hear that phrase, oh, we'll fix it in comp, we'll fix it in post, is typically what people have said. You might have heard that statement. Most often, it typically means the compositor is the one that's fixing it. We're sort of the Swiss Army knife of all the tasks, where we can take and handle a large percentage of different tasks, not requiring the entire pipeline within a studio. So day in the life of a compositor, it could consist of things from what is just standard issue, a screen insert. You see a bunch of shots and the actor's on their cell phone and they're doing their thing, and you're just tracking in screen inserts that are making it look like they're actually doing something on their phone. On over to the high-end, big-budget avatars or any of the explosive action-centered movies that require high-level digital compositing. You are doing so many different tasks within digital compositing. Ultimately, it just never gets boring. Every new day is a new challenge. So when you ask what is the day in the life of a compositor, it's a new day, a new opportunity to grow, and a new opportunity to shine at what it is you do, which is taking those elements that have been created by all the other amazing artists before you in the pipeline, assembling it and passing it off to be able to see on the big screen in the theater. Advice that I would provide to someone that's looking to break into being a digital compositor, quite frankly, be willing to work hard. Working a 9-to-5 shift, 40 hours a week, while yes, that's a nice work-life balance, doesn't really get you ahead. It gives you the opportunity to do the work that you came into, but at the end of the day, you want to shine. You want to be able to work hard and play hard, as we say. In our category, part of that play is literally doing the job. For us, we love to go into the office, or we're working remote, or wherever our setup is, and we're working hard, we're putting in the time, and we're ultimately not taking no for an answer. Put a smile on your face and learn the techniques that you need to know to be able to achieve what it is you're going after for compositing, And at the end of the day, you're going to have a well-rounded recipe to be able to go after industry professional work. It's been a wild ride, but had a lot of different opportunities that have come along, and you never said no. Just always go with the flow and experience what it is that you're presented, which is an opportunity to create and participate in some very high level but exciting outcomes in the visual effects industry.